Just fucking do it. Subscribe now. But I've been doing outrageous stuff all my life. It made me think, not our conversation, but I've said this before on YouTube. When we were 3 weeks before graduation from high school, which was a miracle, I graduated, but I had a 2.55 average out of 4. I never went to, I tried to go as few classes as possible. I never turned in a homework assignment. And when they give you books, you used to have lockers. I don't know if they still have lockers. And you get the books at the beginning of the semester, and you put them in. I put them in. And the last day of the semester, I'd pull them out, and there'd be a dust ring, because I never moved the book, and I never cracked the binding. Binding, is that right? Yeah, cracked the binding. And I turned in the books. So 3 weeks before, Ruben Munoz, who's dead now, he served life for murder in Florida. Walt Wojak, who's dead now, and myself were sitting in the senior area, and we were in a lockdown school. You walked in, you didn't leave, locked down. And the boys' vice principal, a guy named Hank Leeds, was the enforcer. He was the guy that beat you. He was an ex-All-American football player from Nebraska or someplace. And he was the enforcer, and he'd come by, and we were eating McDonald's hamburgers. And they had, this was 30 years before they delivered anything. And so Leeds says, "Peña, where'd you get those goddamn hamburgers?" I said, "We had them delivered, Mr. Leeds. There's no fucking delivery. As soon as lunch period's over, get in my fucking office." And so we go to his office, and he hands us our diplomas. Ruben, Walt, myself. "Get the fuck off campus. We don't want your kind here." And so we took them, and then we go to the nearby pool hall, and we're shooting 9-ball. And Walt was the intellect of the group. And he said, there's a black asshole marching a 1,000,000-man march. We got rights. They can't do this to us now. I got a dream. I don't know what he's talking about. I'm just having another picture of beer. And so he says, so we decided to go back to the school. We kicked his door in, and we crumpled up our diplomas and threw them in his face. "We got fucking rights." And I was the mouthpiece. "We got fucking rights, and I'm going to burn this motherfucking school down." And I tried a couple times, but I wasn't very successful. I wasn't successful at all burning the school down. And that's how I got out of high school. They didn't want me to come to school, just like they don't want me to come to meetings now. And we had it figured out. I had journalism for the first period, and so I wrote for the LA Times. I had a column in the LA Times as a 17-year-old senior in high school, and it was called Peña's Pinpoint. And then it got switched to The Agony of Defeat. And we would sit in a Coffee Dan's, which is a restaurant, drinking Bloody Marys in the morning, for first period. We're 17. So we had a permanent hall pass, they used to call it, I think. I only went to school 118 days my senior year. 118 days. I wasn't even there 118 days. So when I went back to the school a few months ago with Sally to talk to the new principal, and there's files on me still, 60 fucking years later, 58 years later. And it's kind of like, if you've seen the movie Red, Retired and Extra Dangerous or whatever, with Bruce Willis, and you go down in the files in the archives of the CIA, well, they've got a place where I went to high school, where the really asshole kids of the earth were, and I'm in those files. She says, "Well, Mr." And then she opens the file. It says gifted. But they didn't know how to handle gifted people in 1962, 63. Gifted. High IQ. Gifted. But I tried to burn the school down. And I went to the place where the gymnasium had just been knocked down the week before we got there because they were building a new gymnasium. Sally, this is where I lit the shit and put the trash in and the gasoline. This is how I lived my whole life. And I'm here and you're there. Walt Wojak, when we were in junior high school, he weighed about 200 pounds. And we used to go up to the college and beat up college kids, the junior high school kids. And most of the college kids that we beat up fought like most of you fought in the ring, or didn't fight, or pretended to fight. And when he was born, he weighed 16 and a half pounds, this kid. In high school, he had 16-inch forearms and never lifted a weight. He was German. His father was a tank commander for Rommel, Nazi tank commander. He was lazy. He was the slowest pulling left guard in Los Angeles County. That was his distinction. The slowest pulling left guard. And I was thinking again, after talking to you, I've only been knocked out twice that I know. Same guy, this guy, my best friend, same night. And it's on the, Dan does the extreme. And then they ripped my clothes off and they pinned him behind the bar with nails. And I'm sitting there in my boxer shorts. And the police come and say, this is on the corner of Reseda Boulevard and Ventura Boulevard. He says, there's been a disturbance here. And I'm all beat the fuck. No. How did you get, I fell off, I had too much drink, and I fell off the bar stool. And the guy that knocked me out twice sitting there, and he's laughing, everybody's laughing. But I never did anything right. Never. And look at you. I'm not suggesting in any way, shape, manner, or form, but if I can pull you a little bit towards my end of the continuum, just a little, you're a billionaire. Now, everybody in this room has wanted to punch somebody in the face, but didn't. Everybody in the room, even the girls. Sally doesn't tell the story anymore, but one time, anyway, she wasn't going to punch the teacher, but she punched the student instead, and her life changed. I'm not suggesting you do that, but I have no inhibitions. None. And that's why my alligator mouth has overloaded my hummingbird ass. Not as many times as I have white hair, but almost as many times as I have white hair. I don't get ulcers, I give ulcers. I don't get a stroke or hypertension or, all those things. I give it. Now, I'm not saying that's bad. I mean, I'm not saying that's good. I'm not a Freudian slip there. But guys, you're living in a dual reality world destined for failure. I'm not saying Donald Trump is right about everything, and I know Donald, full disclosure, but his alligator mouth has certainly overloaded his hummingbird ass countless times, right? Why is he leading the polls? How is that possible? He talks about grabbing girls by the snatch. Everybody understands what the snatch is, right? And I can't help myself. I have to kiss beautiful women. How? And he's leading in the motherfucking polls. There's a deep underbelly of hatred and misery. 87% of the people on the earth are unhappy because they're afraid, and especially with woke and political correctness, they're unhappy because you can't do anything for fear. And when I call him fat, that's a hate crime in the UK. In the UK now, it's a hate crime. I can go to jail. But if I say you're a fucking ugly skag for the females, you got flabby tits, those are crimes, you go to jail now. And look at where we are. But we have created, from teenage multimillionaires to the largest transaction in recorded history. With the same program that you're learning and the gigs that you're going to get tomorrow afternoon. And again, it's up to you to what you do with it. What you do. Last night you saw Love Doesn't Mean Anything or something, I forget. The greatest of all time tennis coach, he just died. I tried 2 or 3 times to get him here, and it didn't work out, and he's a cantankerous. Well, he was a cantankerous old bastard. and I think he was 91 or 92 when he passed in December. And he doesn't know how to play tennis. That's the whole. And he's the greatest coach that there ever was. And you want to know. You want to know the why, not the how. There used to be a film that's been taken down now of him, standing at the net, volleying. He can't even fucking volley. Couldn't volley. In other words, when the guy hits the ball, looked like me playing tennis. But you want to know all the shit that he didn't know. Now, a film we didn't show you this week was of Steve Ballmer, who is now the largest shareholder of Microsoft. Doesn't know how to code, doesn't know how to do this, he doesn't know software from hardware. But you do, don't you? And what the fuck has it gotten you? Not a goddamn thing. You're living in I believe that there are 2 or 3 different realities. And you guys, well, not you, but I mean, for the most part, the personal development people, and I don't consider what we do personal development. And you've heard me say that personal development is a scam, that W. Clement Stone, dead, who was an insurance peddler, called Napoleon Hill in the early 50s, and he needed a new sales gimmick to sell his new whole life policy. Whole life policy is where the insurance salesman normally gets more than the premium in his first year commission. Okay, and he finally finds Napoleon Hill, who had been bankrupt 2 or 3 times, had abandoned his son, his oldest son, because his son was born with no ears, had served prison for assault and rape, and I can go on and on and on. Also, in my judgment, never met Andrew Carnegie, but and he calls him, and after the 2nd or 3rd day of brainstorming, we need something that they can't keep track of, which is not accountable. And I talked to Clement Stone myself, personally. And we set up a dinner for me to meet him in Chicago. And he says, I believe it was me, but it might have been Mr. It might have been me, but we came up with the idea, personal development. You can't keep track of it. And the personal development industry was born in the early 50s. Some of the gurus that are still around told me the personal development business, this is when I started, is a $1 billion business, $1 going around to 1 billion people with no results. And you wonder why I don't meditate. I listened to your thing last night. Very nice words. I hope they come true. You don't know what the fuck. See, and I told you, you don't know even what kind of answers to ask. Because you're so delusional. You're deluded. Not just the people that are back here for the second time. We've had people back here 12, 13 times. And then the penny drops, the shoe drops, whatever that saying is. And all of a sudden, their light bulb goes on over their head. My light bulb has gone the 4 or 5 times that it's gone in 100 millionth of a second. And I've taken action immediately, within 30 seconds. I don't have to think about it. He who gets laser beam focused first and stays laser beam focused longest wins most. Comments about the old man and his 7, 8 wives that he doesn't know the names of. Yes, ma'am.
He is a true example of handling before he would even think about it. Like, in a certain way, he did things very intuitively. Like, I'm done with this player, right? You're out. Without even... He didn't put emotion into it. Just cut them out.
Some of you people know people that have been fired by texting, which I think is beyond the pale to me. He equivalently fired Andrew Agassi by texting, by having a newspaper article announce that he was through with him and didn't have the decency to tell him face to face. There's a lot of people in the movie or in the TV series Succession. He gets the moron son to fire this guy, and he gets one of the other morons to fight. You remember that, okay? Because the old man, and again, I know him personally, didn't have the balls, the temerity, the grit, whatever word you want to use, a decency to fire him himself. And that's pretty much the corporate world. It's also the entrepreneur world. I mean, you're going to know that your partner stole from you when you check the bank account. And when you tell me he's got or you've got his 6, and I want to throw up when I hear that. And when you guys do, what the fuck is this when you pump fist, whatever that? I want to come and slap you. You don't have a clue. And that's why 99% of the partnerships don't work. Whether it's 2, 4, 9, 11, 1.5, gay, transgender, they don't work. Because at some level, somebody's going to pull his putt out and say, fuck, I'm doing 55% of the work instead of 50. Or I'm doing 95% of the work instead of 50. Or I'm doing, all the ideas are coming from me and everybody else is a moron. That's normally when I was younger. I came up with all ideas and then I didn't wait for you to do it. I did it myself. Because I believe when I was a detail-oriented micro kind of guy that I could do it better. If you want something done, well, you do it yourself, which is bullshit. You know, it's a complete waste of time. In those days, I didn't give credit for time. And I tell people now, I tell doctors, the best way to flip a doctor to the dark side is, how much money do you make an hour? And fuck, I could be a truck driver. Yep. I'd be scared, and I'm not scared of anything, to figure out how much money some of you guys make an hour. We've already heard Peter say he made 30 grand a year. I don't know if that's minimum wage. I really don't. I can't imagine, what 30 grand a year is one dinner for Simon. 4 tons of fun. Do you know how to spend 30,000 euros or pounds on one meal? 4 people. That's not a wedding. That's not an anniversary. 4 people. I've seen him with these eyes. I just got a great email from him. Drank a case of champagne with these fucking eyes. When he's on a diet, he drinks white wine. When he's not on a diet, he drinks red wine. I know his menu better than he does. And he's in pretty good shape. Anything about the old man, God rest his soul. And you're still going to go listen to podcasts and about formulas and shit, especially this meathead moron here with the goatee. He wants to know why. Commercial real estate's through. You're bankrupt. You just don't know it yet. In fact, along those lines, didn't I get it? Children, this is another thing. Children in the UK across the board have gotten 11% pay rise in their allowances. 11%. Now, who in the fuck keeps track of that? I have no idea. So the average little mooch has gotten 11% more money now for allowance. I didn't get an allowance. I was picking weeds in big estates since I'm about 10. And one time, my mother comes to pick me up, and I'd fallen asleep against a tree. And she comes there, and she says, how much were you supposed to have cleaned the weeds? And let's say an area as big as this room. And so she turned the car back on, put the lights on, parked the car, and picked weeds with me till 1 o'clock in the morning. Rather than her son be shamed, fired for not doing his job. And so my dad happened to be home that time. And so my mother's knees were all bloody from crawling around. And so my dad assumes the worst, that somebody had raped her or beat her up or something. So, he's running to get his guns and shit like that. And no, Manny, it wasn't that at all. I was helping Danny. And then I got a beating because I fell asleep against a tree. When my dad used to come home, 6, 8, 10 times a year, he'd look at my hands and see how swollen they were from the nuns hitting me. Then he beat me again. He says, I know you're a conniving little fuck. And I know that I caught you for 1 out of 50 times. Which he was right. It was 1 out of 100 times. And if I had some black and blue marks, he knew the priest had hit me. But I never saw any sexual things. And I know the Catholic Church is famous for that. But I never saw any of that. But I certainly know that they fucking beat. And when I was in Rome, meeting the Sister Superior of the Holy Family Order, and all of the young little nuns. And if you think that you live in a dream world, to be a nun now, you got to live in a fucking dream world. And so they're all saying there, and they're asking me my experience. And we hear, Mr. Peña, you wanted to be a priest. That's correct. And then they said, well, how did that end? And I don't tell them, as soon as I knew I could get a hard, I didn't tell them that part. I've got enough savoir-faire not to tell them. As soon as my dick got stiff, I knew I didn't want to be a priest. But I said I had other issues, and I wanted to give them a bullshit answer. But then they go to the old nun, who's a little older than I am, and they said, Mr. Peña talks about these stories, and she's telling them they're not true. So then in a setting like this, she's there, and I'm here in a Q&A, and then I put her on the spot, and I said, did nuns beat students with rulers, switches, and clubs or not? Yes or no? It seemed like minutes went by, and then finally she says yes. And then, but, like when you answer me, but, you want to do the death roll because, but, and she has a little canned speech, but we're still in business after 2,000 years, and blah, 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 and it was a learning transition. Just like I tell you, board of directors are in transition. Religion is in transition. Oh, stop it, Sister Superior. I've heard enough. And then the little nuns are going, kind of giggling because they know she's full of shit, You're living in a dream world. How do I get you out of it? If you don't get out of it, kids, you're fucked. What else about the old man? 11% rise in your fucking allowance. What a joke. Past 4 months. Jason Nagy, 50, 65, 115, 200, 150. Oh, fuck, he's been busy boy since I last talked to him. Life's not fair. Boy, ain't that the truth? But if you're still... Yeah. But if you think that life's fair, you lived in a bubble. Well, most of you have lived in bubble-wrapped lives. You know how you see a kid that can't breathe the regular air and he's got like an oxygen tent permanently around him? That's where you live. With a couple of you. And except for some of the, crazy antics that he's been involved in. But that's good. But you haven't experienced that. And the closest, to high performance individual is me, which is a sad commentary. Okay? What else about, if anything, about the old man? Anyway, he's added $83 million in EBITDA. And you're going to hear him today. You put a number, and he's already had 2 exits. 10? 12? And he's in the high EBITDA shit because he's not digging ditches. The equivalent of mentally, you guys are still, you're blue collar workers in East LA in the hood, digging ditches for back in the day when I was a kid. Minimum wage was $2.50 an hour. That's where you are on the life cycle of generational wealth. And you go home and with a beer, and you got, the wife beater shirts, where they have no arms, what do you call them, wife beater shirts, and you pull up to the TV and watch the 6 o'clock news. That's where you are in life compared to, what you allegedly aspire to. And some of you make it and some of you don't. Okay, well, yes. If there's no other questions about the movie, we're going to move on, okay? But the main thrust of it is he doesn't know how to play tennis. And you want to know how the QLA model works. That's the analogy. And you've heard everybody that has gotten up here on the webinar, including Raymond, make mistakes and say things that weren't true. Not on purpose, because they don't know. But you want to know. Okay, YouTube.